What's up? What's up? Sorry, running a couple minutes late. Eating dinner, all that good stuff. Welcome in Monday Night Live. Jason Priester, allclemsontigers.com. Part of the Clemson Maven multimedia platform covering all things Clemson athletics. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel, like the videos. We would greatly appreciate it. Before we dive head first into this stuff tonight, take a moment to remind everybody next Wednesday, June 28th, 5 o'clock, dockside in Clemson, right there on Clemson Boulevard. We're going to be doing a big recruiting show on location. Whole staff's going to be there. Come out and join us. We got giveaways, prizes, the whole kit and caboodle, so to speak. June 28th, 5 o'clock, dockside, right there on Clemson Boulevard. Don't forget. A lot to talk about tonight, and sitting here about the middle of June, you think we start out with recruiting, but not so fast, man. We're going to talk a little baseball right off the jump. Billy Amick, kind of shocks everybody. Enters the portal last week. That news broke on Friday. From my understanding, they informed the staff a day earlier. Dad was on the radio Friday morning, probably, acting like everything was just fine. Probably not the best look. I don't have a whole lot I can tell you about this. This is going to end up looking like it's about NIL, but I don't think that's what jump-started this whole thing. I don't think Amick and Eric Bakich ever really meshed 100%. I think there were some guys, holdovers, from the previous staff that took a little bit longer to buy into Eric Bakich and his coaching style. He's not the laid-back players coach that Monty Lee is. He's more of an authoritarian type deal, and he's just different coaching styles, and it took some guys longer to buy in. I think Amick was one of those guys. And Amick was kind of buried on the bench to start the season. So I think a lot of things are in play here. Without getting too deep into the weeds here, because I don't want to speculate, and I haven't heard a whole lot. It sounds like a lot of things played into this, but it's not all about NIL the way it's being portrayed online. I'm sure he's going to end up getting a sweet NIL deal wherever he goes. I'm 99.9% sure it ain't going to be back at Clemson, because last I heard, he's not even talking to the staff. Eric Bakich flew up to the Cape on Friday to try to talk to Billy and his daddy. And, last I heard, he had failed to make any contact with him. I don't think this is about any position he wants to play. I don't think any of that stuff kickstarted all this. They might all play factors, but I don't think that's the main thing here. He was going to be the starting first baseman next year. I mean, I don't think wanting to play third is what really kickstarted this thing off. It sounds like it goes back to the beginning, and one final thing happened maybe, and that put it over the edge. And I don't know, man. Mark Kingston and Monty Lee flew up there today to make their pitch. Florida's made a pitch. I've heard Texas A&M's made a pitch. I don't know where he's going to end up. I will say this. If he ends up at South Carolina, he might be the most hated former Clemson Tiger in history. You can talk about all these other guys that transfer from Clemson to South Carolina. This one's going to be a little bit different because Granddad sat on the board for so long. Amick's ties to the school and all that stuff, that the Amick family's ties. We'll see where he lands up. And I'm not buying all this $250,000 deal from Florida, man. I just don't see that much money being spent on a baseball player. We'll see, though. Ask Rashada how those NIL deals at Florida work out. But, again, I think this goes way back to the start of the season, not getting opportunities. I don't think playing time had anything to do with it. I don't think any position had anything to do with it. Or let me restart that. I don't think playing time was a main player here. I don't think any position change or non-position change was a main factor here. Based on everything I can gather, to me, it sounds like bruised egos, plain and simple. And that's what it boils down to. And the fact that if it's true that Eric Bakich flies up there, you won't even talk to him. I don't know. To me, that kind of speaks volumes. If it was about getting the best deal, then you would at least listen to Clemson's pitch, right? Clemson's got NIL collectives. They are very well funded, more so than most schools in this country. Clemson's NIL collectives, they've got some cash influx there. So the fact that he's not even listening to any offers, I don't know. I think that kind of speaks volumes. I see somebody's asking about Cam Canarella news. Hope he stays. I think Canarella's here and is going to stay. I started getting wind of some Cam transfers last week, even before the Amick stuff, and kind of dug into those. And I was told he was coming back. I've reached out to some people that I know in the Hartsville area who say he's coming back, that he's not leaving. I was told by more than one person up there in Clemson that Canarella knows where the long money is, and that's what he's in this for. He's not interested in any short-term money, or he won't be influenced by any outside short-term money, so to speak. So I think Canarella's safe. I think he's going to be here. I don't think this Amick thing's all about NIL the way it's being portrayed. It's going to end up looking like that. But I don't think that's what kickstarted this whole thing off. Obviously, after what he did, he was an All-American this season. He's going to get a great offer from somewhere. But, I don't think that's what started this thing off. It might end up being that way, but I don't think that's what started it. He could have got NIL money in Clemson. So that's what I know on Billy Amick. Sorry, I can't give you one specific reason. I don't think there was one specific reason. But this is the same thing I've heard. And I've got more than one person has told me that Canarella is hanging around. He's not going anywhere. And one of those is someone I trust very much up there. Not even college. No, it's not. It's not your daddy's college baseball. That's for sure. I looked it up the day before yesterday, and there were already 2,000 names in the portal before the College World Series even started. That number's probably grown exponentially since then. It's basically like free agency with no rules. That's what you're dealing with here. And I can tell you for a fact that there are players on the Clemson roster right now who are not in the portal who have been getting offers. There is a ton of tampering going on. And there's no, although there are rules in place against that, there's nobody enforcing those rules. So, it's like the Wild Wild West. It just is what it is until we get some regulation on this kind of stuff, some real regulation with some legs and some teeth, and somebody enforcing this stuff. It's not going to change. It's going to get worse before it gets better. I don't know what's going to happen with baseball. Would Bakich go into the portal to replace Amick? I think Bakich is good. We've already seen him add two pieces out of the portal, kind of quietly. Got a relief pitcher, a starting pitcher and a middle infielder. You're going to lose both your starting middle infielders. He's already gotten one guy out of the portal to replace them. Yeah, I think everything's on the table, man. You look at what you got coming in next year, and you go from there. If you think you need to add a big bat, yeah, absolutely, you go get one. I don't think he'll be afraid to use the portal. I think that you just have to. You might have to wait until after the Major League Baseball draft, but right before the Major League Baseball draft to see who's coming and who's not coming for sure, and go from there. because Clemson's got a guy or two that could easily forego college and go straight to the pros. But yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a possibility. This is when the SUC money will make the difference. See, I don't know about that, man. I don't think this was about money. And again, if the numbers that I've heard are correct, and I have no reason to believe they're not, the money that's being brought in Clemson's collectives, there ain't many schools bringing in more than what Clemson's bringing in. That thing's reaching 8 digits, getting close to reaching 8 digits, from my understanding. There's not a lot of schools can say that. The only difference being Clemson's just not going to go out and get in the bidding wars when it comes to football. I don't know how Backich handles that stuff. Maybe he does it a little bit differently. It's just not something that gets talked about very often. But the few people that will talk about it, I've been told Clemson offers very competitive NIL money, very competitive with the market. I mean, I don't think this is about SEC money. I don't think this is about money to begin with, not NIL money anyways. I mean, the Amicks, everybody that's been around Clemson and knows anything about the Amicks, they are a very well-off family. I mean, I don't think this was just about money. I don't think the kid's been on scholarship the first 2 years he was at Clemson. You got the 11.7. You got to spread that out through your 28 players. So this is the reason Dabo caught so much crap when the NIL was first coming to existence. He knew that without proper controls, it was going to come to Wild Wild West. And you know what? I saw Deion Sanders in an interview today or yesterday saying the same things Dabo used to say. And no, Deion's not going to catch any flack for it. Not a lick. If Dabo would have said what Deion said, the national media would have been pouncing on him within the hour. It's insane. It is insane. But yeah, you got to have some rules and regulations. I don't have the answers. It's kind of hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube. The genie is out of the bottle. I don't know what you do to control it now. You can't bring back the rule where you have to sit out a year if you transfer. You got to try and do something to try and keep the tampering down. You got to enforce some rules. I don't know how you're going to do it, but you got to figure out a way to do it, or it's just going to get worse. That's all I got on Billy Amick, though. Big loss. Make no mistake, man. When you lose the All-American, it's a big loss. You're gonna feel it, and the fact that his family's been so tied in with Clemson for 4 decades or whatever it is now. That it makes it sting a little bit more. I remember being at a press conference a few weeks ago, and Eric Backich was in there, and Billy Amick, and I can't remember. It might have been Caden Grice. I can't remember who the other player was, but the players always talk first, or the way they do them now. Backich will give an opening statement, then the players take questions, and then Backich takes questions from the media. So Backich makes his opening statement, players take their questions and get up and start to walk off. And somebody asked Backich about Billy Amick, and he looks over at Billy and says, "If we cut you, you'd bleed orange, right?" And Billy says, "Oh, yeah." So, I mean, when you lose a guy like that that's supposedly been a diehard Clemson fan his entire life, it's going to sting. You take the numbers out of it. You add the numbers in it stings just a little bit more. I mean, it is what it is. On to recruiting. Would the staff take Matthews and Coleman? I'm not sure. I want to say yes, though. I don't see how you can say no to either one of those guys. I got asked this earlier today. You got to land Matthews first, though, for it to even be a discussion. You can always sign Matthews as an athlete. We talked about that before. And then you get down the road and you just Coleman's an oversign at receiver. I've maintained all along, I think we're getting to 3 somehow, some way. I don't think Coleman's a top 15 player, one of the He's a 5-star wide receiver. That's just, you don't tell that guy no. So if you somehow land Matthews and you know you're still very much in it with Coleman, I don't think you stop recruiting that guy and telling him you're full. I just don't see that playing out that way. The chances of landing both those guys are probably relatively small. But if both of them want it in, I think they're both takes. Based on a couple of things I've heard, I think they would both be takes. I don't think anything's set in stone. And again, you got to land Matthews first for it to even become a discussion. Because Matthews is probably going to announce in July. Coleman's not going to announce till later in the fall, probably. So you got to land Matthews first, and then we'll see what happens. But I would say, as we sit here today, yeah, I think you would take both. I think they would take both. Brady says, let Amick go. That's kind of that's kind of the prevailing thought with me too. If you got a guy that's not 100% bought into what you're doing, he's not 100% bought into the coaching staff, maybe you're better off if he's not on your team. I know it's hard to say that about a guy who hit well over 400 and had 18 home runs or whatever it was this season in just over a half a season. It's hard to say that about a guy like that because he brings a lot to the table, man. He's already killing it up in the Cape Cod League. He's already hit a couple of home runs in his first few games. But, we'll see how it plays out, man. Some things just don't work out the way you want them to work out. And I'm of the opinion that if a guy's not 100% in with your head coach's philosophy and he's not fully bought in, you're probably better off without him in the clubhouse. Ricardo Jones' commitment date is the 27th. Any other announcements? Any other recruits who have announcements coming soon? He's the only one that's got one set right now for this month off the top of my head. And I think that, we're talking about safety Ricardo Jones. He was here for a big official visit weekend back the first of the month. I think Clemson's sitting real well with him, but he's got a visit to take to Tallahassee this weekend. It's kind of come down to Clemson and Florida State. I think Norvell and the Seminoles would have to just blow him away this weekend. I think Clemson's got that big of a lead. I'm not sure. They are so far out in front, in my opinion. I'm not sure Florida State's able to make up that much ground. He's going to announce next week again. So not a lot of time to do more work on him. But say you do end up landing Jones, that gives you pair him with Noah Dixon, and that gives you two very good safeties in this class. You already got Devoy Fegan on board at corner. You're still going to take one more. Looks like you're sitting pretty well with Corey and Gibson, depending on how his last visit goes. That might be a very strong secondary class when we get to signing day. Very strong. Edric Houston. Probably going to Ohio State. It's kind of starting to sound that way. Still got until the 22nd of August to work on that guy, though. He's not going to announce until late August, sounds like. So you still got some time to work on him, but I would absolutely have Ohio State in the driver's seat coming off his visit up there to Columbus this weekend. Make no mistake. I don't know any other way to put it. I've said all along I thought Clemson was in it more than people thought, and now that he's been to Columbus again, I'm not so sure they're that in it anymore. Do think it has come down to Clemson and Ohio State, though. I think those have been the two at the top of his list. Anyway, Caden Grice comes back. I I never say never, but I would be surprised if Grice is back next year. I really would. I think he made himself a lot of money this year. A lot of money. Any news on the offensive line, and when do we expect the offensive line board to expand? Some of these guys are fixing to start announcing. Some of these guys, they had 6 at the big official visit weekend. William Satterwhite, Fletcher Westfall, Ronan O'Connell, Jamison Riggs. I'm missing a couple off the top of my head, but there were 6 here that weekend. Michael Ooney was another one. Some of these guys are fixing to start announcing here 1st of July, middle of July. Depending on what happens with some of those guys, that's when you'll start seeing the board start to expand some. I still think Clemson's in great shape with Satterwhite. He takes a visit to Tennessee this weekend. He's coming down to Clemson in Tennessee. Still think Clemson's in solid shape with Westfall. Just going to have to wait and see where things stand after he takes all of his visits. He's been to Georgia. He's still got to go to Arkansas, and there's one more if I'm not mistaken. But I think Clemson has positioned themselves as well as they could have with Westfall. Sounds like with Ooney, he's kind of, while Clemson might have been sitting pretty with him for a little while, it kind of sounds like that's fading a little bit. So when some of these guys start announcing when Clemson misses on some of these guys, you're going to start seeing the board expand before the all-in cookout, which I expect to be towards the end of July. Like last year, that event was mostly about getting all the commits back on campus to spend time together and bonding and all that stuff. I think it's going to be a bigger deal this year. I think there's still going to be some uncommitted targets out there that they look to get back on campus that weekend. We'll see how many of them are offensive linemen. We want to take 3 in this class. And I think the board's going to have to expand at some point. And it's probably going to be, right along that time of the cookout. That's kind of when I start seeing it start to expand. Right before that, you start seeing them maybe trying to get some new guys in to visit that weekend for that cookout. But again, it's going to depend on what some of these other guys that were here that first weekend in June do. I fully expect several of those guys to be committed by the time the cookout rolls around in late July. How many of the commits from the official visit weekend are still out there? If you're asking me, I think you're asking me about my shades, right? The little thing I do on Twitter and Facebook with the shades. If that's what you're asking me about, there's still 1 pair floating around out there somewhere. There were 6 out there. 5 have been accounted for. Still 1 pair left. Do we still lead for 4-star cornerback Corian Gibson? I always said be wary of Ohio State. He had that visit to Columbus. He's taking it now. I wouldn't. Now that he's taking it, I don't see Ohio State as this big-time threat. You always got to want to let him get through that thing first. Never discount Ohio State. But now that he's been there, done that, I don't see him as a serious threat to Gibson. I think it's going to come down to Clemson, Texas. Texas, again, like I said last week, they always kind of been lurking there. This is a kid from Texas. I still feel really good about Clemson's chances here, but he's still got an official to take to Texas. Kind of sounds like there are some people in his ear trying to push him towards Texas. We'll see. We'll see how much weight those voices carry. But if you're Clemson, you've done everything you can now. You got to kind of let the chips fall where they may. Again, this is the timeline's kind of been changed a couple of times with Gibson. I think I said last week I thought he was a guy that might commit during the spring game and didn't when he was here. I thought he was one that could commit right after the big official visit weekend. and be one of those that shut it down and jump on board. Didn't play out that way. But I think we're finally really starting to get to the end with him. I think he'll take this visit to Texas and probably be done and make a decision. No date formally set or anything, but once we get out of June and into July, I think we're going to start seeing a bunch of these guys start setting commitment dates. Then you'll have a better idea of when you'll see Clemson expand the board and say offensive line. But as far as Gibson, I still think they have positioned themselves as well as possible. If I had to say right now today, I still think he's a part of the class. I think he jumps on board. I think him and his family liked it that much here during their, when they've been up here. And I don't think those voices in his ear are going to carry enough weight. Let's put it like that. Who is the staff looking at for defensive end if the board expands? I'm not sure. We've seen them. The board's going to expand. Matter of fact, they just offered a guy last week. Let me see I done forgot his name off the top of my head. He's so new. But they just offered a new defensive end last week, if I am not mistaken. But so we're already seeing the board expand. As a matter of fact, I think we talked about it on here last week. Matter of fact, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, Quintavious something. But so we're already starting to see the board expand. They tried to get in with Dominic Nichols, got him here or tried to get in with Dominic Nichols. That's not working out so well. It doesn't sound good with Edric Houston right now. So we'll see. As far as any other new offers that are coming, I think some are coming, but I can't tell you who they're going to be. I have no idea which direction they're heading with that. A lot of these guys are already committed right now. It's just going to have to wait and see. I wish I could remember his name. And I can't because my memory has gotten terrible in my old age. Any chance we get Houston back on campus for the cookout? You know what? That would absolutely if you are still recruiting Edric Houston and he's not announcing till later in August, that is one of your objectives, to get him back here for that cookout. Make no mistake. But just because he's not announcing until late August doesn't mean he will not have to decided by then. He could be decided easily. We saw it with Peter Woods last year. He was committed for weeks before he announced it publicly. It's just going to kind of depend on the timeline. But if he is still legitimately on the table by the time that weekend rolls around, yeah, you absolutely try to get him back. That's a guy you don't throw in the towel on. He talked about it with somebody else, Cam Coleman a minute ago. Houston is one of the top players in the country. You keep going to the fat lady sings. So, yeah, I think you absolutely make the effort to get him back on campus. Now, whether you could attract him back, I'm not sure. But you definitely make the effort. Quintavious Johnson, that's who got Clemson's last defensive end offer. He's from the Atlanta area, 4-star kid. 6'4", 250 pounds. Doesn't talk very much, so he's hard to get a good read on. Doesn't do interviews. I reached out to him. Crickets. Just doesn't talk to the media much. He's visited South Carolina. think he's visited Georgia. I think he's still going. I think he's going to be one of the many kids at Tennessee this weekend. Again, tried to get in with Dominic Nichols at end. That's probably not happening. Darian Mayo's a intriguing guy from the Maryland area. He's been one of the top 2 targets there with Houston here of late. He's another guy that does not say a lot. Hard to get a good read on. Visited Ohio State. Visited Southern Cal. We'll have to see. I think Elias Williams is a name to know if Clemson has to expand the board again. To me, that would be the first name off the top of my head. I know Clemson's been in contact with him and all that good stuff, but he would be the first name that comes to mind. Yes, Quintavious Johnson. I am a believer that some of these local players should be better than others we back off from. Yeah, I'm not sure what I don't. You got to expand on that a little bit. I'm not sure what you're referring to there. Yeah, Mike. So Solomon Williams would be the guy right off the top of. I mean, not Solomon Williams. He's already got offer. Elias Williams. He would be the guy off the top of my head. That would probably be at or near the top of the board when new offers start going out. All right, I think I hit them all. Back to the cookout, though. I think this cookout is going to be different than last year. Again, last year we saw it be more about the committed guys and getting the committed guys back on campus together. I don't think it's going to be so much about that this year. I think there's going to be more uncommitted guys on campus, and it'll be more of a recruiting event than it was last year, so to speak. Last year, I looked at it as more of a bonding event and all that good stuff, but I think there are going to be more uncommitted targets on campus that weekend. Hey, bro, so I can't remember the second baseball commit. I can't remember his name right off the top of my head. That's why I didn't say it earlier. He's an infielder, though. Hold on a minute, and I'll see if I can grab it up real quick. This one was very quiet. Didn't get a lot of play. Let's see. From Georgetown, Andrew Ciufo. I don't even know how to say his name. It's Ciufo. It's from Georgetown. So that's who it is. Middle infielder. What are the 2024 numbers we're looking for by position? Oh, wow. None at quarterback, 1 at running back. Wide receiver, you're at 2 right now. I think you're going to get to 3. Tight end to numbers 1. Offensive line to numbers 3 to 4. Defensive tackle to numbers 2, you already got both of them. Defensive end to numbers 2, you don't have any. Linebacker, the number's supposed to be 2, but they will take a third depending on if they can get a guy they want. Safety and corner, 2 each. Although, say Ricardo Jones jumps on board, then KJ Bolden wants to jump on board, you're not telling that guy no. Don't think Clemson's going to land Bolden, but, just using that as an example. Those things are always fluid. But those are the numbers that I have. Yeah, anyway, I was reading something a minute ago and got distracted while I was talking. But I think the cookout's going to be a bigger deal this year than it was last year. You can almost, it's not going to be an official visit weekend, but you can almost use it the same way in which you did that weekend. You can set it up as the same type of event. The only difference is kids have to pay their own way down here. And it gives you another bullet in the chamber, so to speak, for some of these kids that are still on the fence, still hadn't made a decision, or any new guys you are trying to attract that have not visited yet, who just got offers, or you're fixing to hand out offers too. So seeing as last year's cookout was kind of uneventful from a fan's standpoint when you're looking for recruiting news, this year's might not be quite so uneventful. We'll have to wait until we get a little bit closer, see what happens, see what some of these guys do. But I think it could be a big weekend for defensive ends, big weekend for offensive linemen, because you're still looking for the first player to jump on board at both those positions. Before we get out of here, going to touch on the two 2025 guys that just jumped on board. Now, we're all sitting over here fully focused on 2024. Clemson's already got two on board in 2025 and two big ones. Gideon Davidson, who I thought was coming to Clemson for a long time now, jumped on board middle of last week, told me he's actually been committed since the day they offered him. He committed on the spot on the phone with Dabo and CJ Spiller and just did it publicly last week. Big time running back for CJ Spiller, man. That gives him two very early in the cycle, 2 cycles in a row. David Ajama jumped on board early in the 2024 cycle. And these are two very good running backs. So all that talk of CJ Spiller being a weak link in recruiting, that's out. I think he's proven in these last 2 classes he knows at least a little bit about what he's doing. He'd probably be the first to tell you he's still got room to grow and evolve as a coach and a recruiter. But he's getting it done right now. Then 2025 quarterback, Blake Hibbert jumps on board. Watched Hibbert work out a couple weekends ago at Dabo's camp. Big kid, 6'3", probably 215, 220 right about now. That's what he looked like to me. And he moves around very well for a guy that size. He would be a lot more mobile than you would think of when thinking about a guy that size. Cannon for an arm, makes all the throws, extremely accurate. The first thing that I see when I watch his film, though, he makes good decisions. Look at his numbers from last year. 24 touchdowns, 1 interception. 1 interception, 12 games. I know he doesn't play against the stiffest of competition up there in Maryland, but that's not the be-all, end-all gauge for players. They're still a little bit raw in some areas, but that's to be expected of a guy that has not even entered his junior season yet. Gives you 2 cornerstone pieces on the offensive side of the ball. And just helps you that much more when you start wanting to land, like what Brady says right here. Guys like David Sanders, top offensive lineman in the 2025 class. Sanders sees he got a back like Davidson to block for, a quarterback like Hebert to block for. Hey, it makes the pitch a little bit easier. So, good start to the 2025 class. 2 key pieces on the offensive side of the ball, 2 big-time pieces on the offensive side of the ball. I think 24/7 ranks Hibbert as the 11th best quarterback in the country. If I'm not mistaken, or the composite does. I think he'll be better than that by the time we get to signing day. I think he's going to just get better over the next 2 years. As a committed guy, he might not skyrocket up the rankings or anything. Can't sell new content on a guy that's committed. But I think if you watch his film, once he gets to his junior year and then once he gets to his senior year, you'll see a lot of improvement. And he's already really good. You could tell by the way Garrett Riley was, kind of interacting with him and coaching him up at camp a couple of weeks ago that he really likes, what he brings to the table. And there are a lot of things to like. Make no mistake. Everett still has room to grow. Yeah, he does, man. He's 6'3". You still put a few more pounds on that thing. Don't want to make him too big, though. I think he's already 215. I think his Twitter account says he's 215 now. I think he's listed at 205 on the recruiting sites, but I think his Twitter account says he's 215, and he looks every bit of 215. He's a big kid, man. He's got a big arm. Is Hibbert downgraded for playing where he is in the Northeast? That's probably it probably factors in some, I'm sure. I mean, he doesn't play. Came to Clemson. That was the knock on him, that he was overrated because he played against weak competition. And we all saw how that worked out. It's a gauge, man. You got to take it into consideration, but I don't think it's the be-all, end-all. You either can play or you can't. And the competition, if you're that good, you're going to be that good against the better competition, whether you play against it every week or not. So we'll see. The fact that Garrett Riley likes him so much, to me, that says it all. I think that speaks volumes. And if he likes him that much, for them to take him this early, that ought to be enough for the fan base. All right. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. We would very much appreciate it. Don't forget, next Wednesday, June 28th, 5 o'clock, dockside, right there on Clemson Boulevard. We're going to have a big recruiting show right there on location. Whole staff's going to be there. Going to have some giveaways. I think we got a football signed by Christian Wilkins, Cleveland Farrell, Brent Venables, and some other coaches from the 2018 national title team that we're going to give away. Got to be present to win, though. Got some stuff we're going to give away, too. Other stuff we're going to give away. We'll have some swag. Come on out. Join us. We'll have a little fun. And if not, I'll see you guys next Monday, man. Appreciate y'all tuning in. As always, have a good week.